Which one should you buy? This plot of land for 40 lakh rupees or this apartment for 1 crore rupees? I have an Excel sheet that has the exact plan for you to figure out this plot versus flat debate. First, we'll calculate the actual cost of buying this apartment. Second, we'll calculate the actual cost of this plot and actually building a house on top of it. Then we'll compare which one wins over a 5, 10, 20 year period. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the flat for self-consumption and open up this Excel sheet. So let's assume we've bought this flat for 1 crore. It's a 2 BHK. What prices ho gaye aajkal? Now I've already included this registration and stamp duty in this 1 crore cost, but we do know that there are other costs. So let's add that. First, there'll be 20 lakh as down payment and the rest 80 lakh is a home loan. That's the loan interest, which I've added at 7.85. Based on this, the monthly EMI comes to 66,170 rupees. This you have to keep for 20 years to own this flat. And over 20 years, the total repayment to the bank becomes 1.58 crores. If I add that 20 lakh down payment, my actual total cost is 1.78. It's almost double. It's about 78% more than what we think the cost of the house was. Now you can go to the description, click on file, make a copy and do this with me for your situation, for your number. But you know what? This is actually not the full cost. We have something more. We have some recurring expenses. One is called property tax. So if you look at this, it's about 50,000 rupees a year and this increases lagbhag 5% a year. So let's add that up. Over 20 years, this becomes 16.5 lakh rupees. Then we have society maintenance. And this is also interesting. Even if you put the house on rent, you still have to pay maintenance. If you don't live there, you still have to pay maintenance. And if you live there, you still have to pay maintenance. So let's add about 50,000 rupees a year. Please change it according to whatever your prices for your society are. And this also increases about 5% a year. Over 20 years, like I said, this becomes 16.5 lakhs. It takes an army of so many people from pre-production to graphics to writers to researchers to all of this to actually make this video. And the best way to say thanks is to actually write something nice in the comments or just hit that subscribe button. A lot of you aren't actually clicking on it, so please do that right now. Then there is house maintenance, which you do internally inside your house for the place that you live. Let me put a very small number to this. Let me put 10,000 rupees a year. And let's also assume maintenance is going up by 5%. I do think thoda zyada kharcha hota hai and sometimes this 5% may be wrong because as the house gets older, it becomes more expensive to own. And over 20 years, this adds up to 3.3 lakhs. I'll also add interior furnishing, which should be about 8.5 lakh rupees. The total now for all that we just did is 44.87 lakhs. And let me add this up together. The total cost of owning the flat is 2.23 crores. But when you cross 2.23 crores, that's when you're breaking even, your first rupee will be made then. Now, how much money did we make on the flat? So what we did was, because this is an Excel model, we used the RBI index to figure out what is the average cost of these homes and how much are they going up. Between 2023 and 4, the average was 4.5%, which means the total value of the house is 2.41 crores and we calculated the actual cost, which is 2.23 crores, which means the gain is about 17.5 lakhs. That's not a lot because this is 20-year period. And the cumulative gain over 20 years is 8% total. So, ज़्यादा कुछ gain है नहीं. Now let's move on to the plot. Plot थोड़ा complicated है because the plot is a plot. I have to build a house. तभी वो 40 लाख का था. So let's imagine that we have to build a house on the plot and let's see what number we come up to. I have gone through this website which gives a bunch of localities and the per square feet rate. The rate of land in this area was roughly 8,000 rupees per square feet. So I'll fill that up. And the plot price is about 40 lakh rupees. Okay. So first we have to add stamp duty. This is roughly 5%, which in our case is 2 lakh rupees. There is a registration cost, which is 1%. That's 40,000 rupees. So I'll add that as well. And there's a cess surcharge, 20,000. There's legal due diligence, 25,000. Now, this can be any amount, of course, but I think 25,000 is pretty fair. Documentation, about 10,000 rupees. And our cost, the 40 lakhs, after all these costs, which we'll add, has become 43 lakh rupees. But this plot of land is still butt naked. There is no house on top of it. So let's add those costs as well. Now, on a 500 square feet plot, we're assuming about 450 square feet we can actually construct something. So let us assume we have 2 floors, and across 2 floors, balcony and all that. About 1,750 square feet is what we have the total built up area at. And the construction cost of 2,500 rupees per square feet. I'll multiply this and we'll get a construction cost of 43.75 lakhs. But again, this is not the actual cost. You have other costs. We have site cleanup, architect fee, soil testing, plan approval. इसके भी पैसे लगते हैं. And then we have municipal approval and betterment charges. Betterment charges? Then comes utility connections like water, electricity, sewage and drainage. Congratulations! आपका घर बन चुका है, but you can't live there because it's an empty place, guys. So let's add to make the house actually, livable. So we'll add the kitchen setup, wardrobe, bathroom fittings. If you're married, your wife's wardrobe, your wife's wardrobe, your wife's wardrobe, and then paint, finishing, basic interiors, furniture, appliances, site supervision, temporary site utilities. Oh my god, क्या करना पड़ता है घर के लिए यार? And after adding all of this, our total construction plus all of the fit outs, the cost is 61.91 lakhs. Now, very, very important for you to under budget and over save. So if this is your target, please make sure you have this much as your budget because ghar ek kuan hai. You will always keep putting more money in it because it's never done. Alright, so have a contingency fund for sure. But since we're doing an Excel sheet, I need to make sure that this contingency plan has some sort of rule. So let's assume 20% of the construction cost is the contingency budget, which will be 12.38 lakhs. So if I add all this up, the final cost of the plot plus construction and the fit outs inside is 1.17 crores. बहुत पैसे लगे यार. But obviously, the cost does not stop there. Let's see what else we are missing. So the first is annual property tax. And I'll assume it's 41,875. This, if it increases at roughly 5% a year, over 20 years, this is 13.85 lakhs. Second, we have water tax, which is 3,000 rupees per year, assuming there's a 5% increase for the next 20 years. This is 99,000 rupees for 1 year. Then there's maintenance. I'll put this at 20,000 rupees a year. Although I think this could be much higher, but let's keep it at 20,000 for now per year. And a 5% increase over 20 years. This is 6.61 lakhs. Okay. Then we have, once we add all this up, this total cost over 20 years is 21.45 lakhs. However, the house itself and the land itself, the plot, has to be financed. In this case, you have 2 types of loans. You have the loan for the actual plot of land and then the construction. So a lot of banks actually offer a composite loan, bringing both of these 2 things together. But there is one caveat. You have to give construction plans and all the other plans before this can get approved, which is why I did not mention it so far. So now that we have all of this figured out, we can submit it to the bank and then let's add the cost of financing. So let's assume that the loan amount is 93.80 lakhs. The down payment is, let's say, 23.45 and the loan interest rate is 8.5%. The loan tenure will keep 20 years and the EMI is 81,398. So over 20 years, the loan that you repay will now come to 1.95 crore rupees. Add to that the down payment, the total cost is 2.19 crores. And once I add the associated expenses, the total is 2.4 crores. So once I add this, let's assume that the house appreciates at 4.5% per year. Over 20 years, it becomes 2.83 crores. That means the total cumulative gain is 42 lakhs. Basically, that's about 18%. The winner over here is obvious. No, it's not. We're not done. We still have one more thing to actually account for, and then we'll know which one actually wins. So this 4.5% average appreciation, right, is an average. And this changes from micro markets, as in the same city, but in a certain region, certain area, the prices are different. But let's look at it city-wise. Over here, you can see Mumbai year-on-year HPI change, or the housing pricing index change, 7%, we have 6.5%, we have 6.7%, 5.9%, 3.2, 3.1, 2.9, Chennai is 2.8 for that particular year. This means that every area or a micro market is affected by what's happening around it. A lot of it is access. You must have heard location, location, location. And where's the highway going from? How's the connectivity? Is there a metro coming? Is there an airport? Do you have amenities, the hotels, etc., etc.? A lot of this is actually not in your control. So this is one risk, could also be an opportunity. The second thing is this chart over here. Look at that. 2005 mein, the NHB housing pricing index showed a 22% gain. Let's look at the previous year, 18%, before that 18%, before that 18 again. Let's look at 2007, 23%. Does this mean that real estate is freaking awesome? I knew it. Sadly, no. It just means like every other asset, there is a cycle. Let me zoom out. Now look at this. This area from 2002 to 2012 has a 15% CAGR. And this area from 2013 to 25 is a 5% CAGR. I actually don't think anyone can predict where the market will go, whether it's equity, gold, silver, housing. But what does make sense is that over 10-20 years, you'll see everything. You'll see degrowth also, you'll see lots of growth also. Finally, if I change that number in the Excel sheet to say 2%, then suddenly the math changes, it's minus 34%, I've lost 75 lakhs. I change this 2% to say a 5%, the math changes again. I do think though, what you can control are your expenses, your budgets. I don't think you can control appreciation. Now for you to get the final verdict, here are 3 things you need to know that we've not discussed so far. 1. According to this report from 2015 to 23, residential plots appreciated by 7% CAGR versus flats at 2%. Second, with a plot, you can actually enjoy the flexibility of building what you want, etc. And the land keeps appreciating. The same logic for a flat does not apply, because once 10 years are over, people may not want to buy a 10-year-old, 15-year-old flat because the construction comes into doubt. So that deterioration is a factor in people buying and does affect demand. Point number 3, plot में देखो मगजमारी बहुत है. It is not easy to find a contractor, get the plans approved, get the loan, everything that is to execute and build a home. If there's anyone who's done this, please tell us your story in the comments. I'd love to know what your experience was. In a flat, it's just the opposite. It's easy, everything's fit out, you have society maintenance, there are guards, there's a process. It just works. Now, as an educator, I have done my job. I have given Excel sheet, given you all these numbers, तुमको confuse कर दिया होगा, and I've also given you these points so you can decide for yourself. But now, I would like to give my personal opinion. That's okay, right? I'm allowed to be a little biased. Now, I'm also human. See, guys, your life is for rent. You're not here permanently. None of us are. In the next few decades, your life will be over. That's the dark truth. And out of those few decades, you're going to spend 20 years, 2 decades, just paying for a home to own it. To me, that makes no sense. Especially if 50-60% of your earnings is going towards an EMI. If it's 10-20%, by all means, it's affordable, go ahead and buy it. Go buy 2 houses. But if it's super expensive, do you really want to make sure that the house owns you and not the other way around? I know it's emotional and all that, but yaar, thoda life ji lo. There are so many things you can do with 1 or 2 crore rupees over 2 decades. The list is all here. So the choice is yours. See you in the next episode.